Hey guys, tonight we slip into the flickering torchlight of a time when trust was in short supply, and architecture could be as cruel as it was beautiful. Imagine trudging across a sunburned plain, sand kicking at your boots, the heat bending the horizon. And there, rising like a mirage, is a stone fortress so massive, so strangely symmetrical, it almost feels like it's watching you. You stop, you squint, and you notice. Something's off. The walls don't follow the slope of the land. The towers seem to cast shadows in the wrong directions. A breeze slips through a nearby archway and whispers something it shouldn't know. And just a heads up, you probably won't survive this, especially if you're one of the builders. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is over there. I love seeing how far this little bedtime crew reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in 14th century Anatolia. The wind stinks of sun-dried grass and distant battlefields. Tensions thrum in the air like the tight strings of a sultan's harp. And in the middle of all this uncertainty, a powerful local ruler, we'll call him Emir, decides he needs a fortress, not just any fortress, one that will declare to the world, I am untouchable, a monument to power, precision, and maybe just a dash of paranoia. He hires the best minds in the region, stone carvers from Armenia, masons from Persia, and engineers from Byzantium. And you're one of them, lucky you. The Emir doesn't just want a wall and a gate. No, he wants trapdoors. He wants double walls with hidden passages. He wants floors that sound solid until you step on the wrong tile. This is not a home. It's a maze, a weapon in disguise. Now, here's the first red flag. The workers are forbidden to sketch or write down plans. Everything must be memorized. You're assigned a section, let's say a staircase that goes up 4 stories, and then disappears into a wall. Seems weird, but hey, you're just following orders. The emir visits the site often. He doesn't smile, he doesn't speak, he just points. Sometimes he knocks on a stone, listens to the echo, and walks away muttering. You once saw him speak to a man holding a compass. 3 days later, that man was gone, vanished like smoke in a cold wind. Every week, the castle grows stranger. One wing has no doors. A tower winds upward like a seashell, but ends in a ceiling trap. And there's a room, you pass it on the way to lunch, where the temperature is always freezing, even in the middle of summer. No one talks about that room. Historians still argue whether this design was purely defensive or if the emir had something darker in mind. After all, a few good archers on a solid wall can do the job just fine. Why the secret passage that loops back into the dungeon? Why the mirror-polished corridor that bends light until it looks like it disappears? One day, someone whispers that the emir is not building the castle to keep enemies out. He's building it to keep secrets in. You try to laugh. But that night, a man from your work crew doesn't return to the camp. They say he wandered into the lower halls, the ones half finished, and never came back. His tools were found days later, 30 feet above the ground, wedged between stones in a place no human should have reached. There's also the issue of the watchers, men who don't work. They just observe. They wear dark robes, don't eat with the rest of you, and speak in a dialect no one recognizes. They scribble notes with brushes on silk and nod whenever someone gets hurt. You once caught one of them watching you sleep. And still, the castle grows. It swells like a living thing, its outer walls blotting out the sky, its inner chambers colder and darker with every stone laid. The scaffolding climbs higher, but the workers below seem fewer every week. And no one's allowed to leave. That's the unspoken rule. You ask a friend if he's scared. He shrugs. They'll let us go when it's done, he says. Right, about that. One of the emir's advisors, an old man with ink-stained hands and glassy eyes, once said that when a masterwork is too perfect, it must be sealed with sacrifice. You laugh it off. Nervous laughter, the kind that doesn't touch your eyes. Then you hear about the bridge. It's meant to span a dry moat, but the stones they're using, they're too heavy, too ornate. One of them has carvings of screaming faces. The legend goes that in ancient Mesopotamia, builders would hide relics of grief into structures to feed the walls. A kind of spiritual glue, totally bonkers, right? And yet, the workers laying that bridge start having the same dream. A corridor, a door, a whisper that says, finish it, and be forgotten. This is where things tip from creepy to straight up cursed. You start noticing repeating symbols etched into the stone, spirals, eyes, geometric knots that look different depending on the time of day. A scholar on site says they might be remnants of older, pre-Islamic rituals. Protective charms, he says, or maps, maybe. The next day he's gone, his tent burned, his books missing. Still, the emir pays in gold, and when gold shines, fear dims. Except at night, when the wind claws through the towers, and you swear you hear footsteps pacing, in places no one should be. And maybe the creepiest part, the castle is almost done. You can feel it, not just because of the structure, but in your bones, like something is holding its breath, waiting, watching, and you can't shake the thought that when the final stone is set, someone will pay the price for what's been built. The morning the final tower is completed, the sky turns a strange shade of violet, too early, too sudden. You chalk it up to dust in the air or a headache from skipping breakfast. But everyone notices it. Even the horses refuse to go near the southern wall. They bray and stamp and pull back on their reins like something's pressing against them. You don't have time to dwell on it, though, because something's changing. The air at the construction site, once buzzing with orders and hammering and curses in 5 different languages, suddenly feels hushed. No tools clinking, no barked commands, just quiet, like the moment before thunder. You follow the others to the main courtyard, where an elaborate carpet has been unfurled, red as dried blood and far too soft for construction boots. There are tables, goblets, and food, so much food. You haven't seen this many roasted lambs, jewel-toned fruits, or silver serving trays in months. And, surprise, everyone's invited. It's the emir's idea, a feast to thank the builders. That should have been your second red flag. Powerful men don't thank people like you. They forget you ever existed. That's the point. But by now, you're too tired, too hungry, and honestly, a little proud. This castle is magnificent, terrifying, hypnotic, and you helped build it. So, you drink the wine. You tear bread and chew grilled onions and chunks of spiced meat. The sun glints off bronze armor worn by guards you've never seen before. The emir watches from his throne-shaped chair under a black canopy. He's not eating. He's not smiling either. And then, the doors shut, all at once. Every single door around the courtyard. Massive things made of ironwood and reinforced with bands of metal. They close in silence, but they're not pushed shut by anyone. They just slide. Someone near you chuckles nervously. Another claps, thinks it's part of the celebration, but your stomach drops. Because one of those doors? You helped install the mechanism for it. You know how it works. It's supposed to be controlled manually, with a crank from the inside wall, but the wall's too far away. No one touched it. You stand. People around you are still laughing, but now it's thinner, more confused. The emir stands. He raises a single hand, and the laughter dies like smoke and water. He speaks, not loudly, but clearly. His voice carries in a way that shouldn't be possible in open air. You've built well, he says. Too well. And then he gestures toward the walls. At first, nothing happens. Then, a slow, grinding noise, like ancient stone shifting against its will. The walls begin to change. You blink. It's subtle, but unmistakable. That arch is taller than before. That hallway behind the table, gone. A new door appears where the kitchen once was, but it leads nowhere, just black. Panic is a slow build, first a trickle, then a rush. Someone shouts for the main gate. Others try the tower staircases. But the castle is no longer what it was. The layout has shifted. You try to follow the corridor you memorized during construction, but it loops into a room with no ceiling. You swear you can still smell the fresh mortar, but there's no exit. Just a column, rising endlessly into open sky. A worker from the western wall screams. He says the spiral staircase he built now climbs downward. He followed it for 10 minutes and ended up in the crypts. Except there weren't crypts in the blueprint. That's when it hits you. The castle isn't finished. Not really. It's alive now. You regroup with a handful of masons, trying to make sense of the shift. One of them insists that the symbols carved into the stones were never decorative. They're keys, he says, or traps. Another mutters that the castle was built on cursed land, once a battlefield soaked in betrayal. You can't lay peace over bones, he whispers. Historians still argue whether this particular fortress ever existed at all. Some say it's a cautionary tale told in different forms across regions, Serbia, Persia, even parts of Sicily, but others point to crumbling ruins that defy explanation. Walls built without seams, staircases with no logic, inner rooms shielded by layers of blank stone. They call it the castle that forgets. Meanwhile, inside, you're realizing something worse. The Watchers are still here. Remember them? The silent ones who never built, just observed? They don't panic. They walk the halls like they know where they're going. You catch a glimpse of one through a wall slit. He disappears behind a false panel you never knew could open. You follow, of course. What else are you going to do? The panel leads to a hallway lit by torches that don't smoke. That's the first weird part. The second is that this hallway shouldn't exist. It's running beneath the courtyard, where you swore there were only drainage channels. Down the hall, you pass writing scratched into the stone, notes from other builders maybe. One says, "If you find this, don't trust the door with teeth." Another, "They only come when the moon is full." Charming. You push on, desperate for any path out. But with each turn, the architecture tightens. Ceilings lower, walls narrow. The stones feel warmer, like they've been breathing. And sometimes, just for a moment, you hear the same sound you heard during construction, knocking, from the inside. You find another worker, barely conscious. He's mumbling something over and over. "They built us in." You try to carry him. He fights. "You don't get it," he gasps. "We're part of it now. We are the castle." Of course, no one believed him later, if there was a later. You eventually find a path that leads upward, toward the outer curtain wall. You sprint, heart pounding, whispering every prayer you can remember, promising every god you've ever heard of that you'll never touch a trowel again if you just make it out. You reach a lookout post. It's empty. You see the valley spread beneath you, the same dusty plain, the same hills. Freedom, just beyond the gate. You call out. No one answers. And then you see it. The gate is gone. Not closed, not hidden. Gone. You stare at the empty wall where the gate should be, jaw slack, mind scrambling. The valley is still there, sun-baked, golden, silent, but now it's framed by unbroken stone. There's no seam, no outline of a door, just smooth rock, like the castle decided the outside world didn't need to exist anymore. You're not alone at the lookout. A woman from the stonemason crew is already there, barefoot and dust-covered, blinking like she's been staring into the sun for hours. "Did it seal for you too?" she asks, her voice hoarse. You nod. And now, here comes the real twist. That feast? It wasn't the end, it was the beginning of the castle's true design. Because when the emir toasted the workers, what he really toasted was this: the final phase of the fortress, activation. Not by magic, probably, but by design. It was built to transform, to fold in on itself, to confuse and consume the very people who created it. You were the scaffolding, the sacrifice. And now, you're just another moving part in a very large, very smug building. You and the barefoot mason team up. You swap stories. Try to make a map. One of you draws on the wall with coal. The next day, it's gone. Not washed away, absorbed. It's like the stone drank it. You sleep in shifts. One of you keeps watch while the other closes their eyes for a few minutes, back against the cold, humming wall. And in the moments before sleep, you swear you feel the vibrations of footsteps, not nearby, inside the wall. Then something changes again. You wake one night to the sound of music, strings faint and drifting, familiar. It's the melody that played at the feast. You follow it because of course you do. That's what the castle wants. But maybe, just maybe, it's the way out. You pass a set of double doors, ones that weren't there yesterday, ornate, inlaid with symbols that now seem less like flourishes and more like warnings. You hesitate, press your ear to the wood. The music is louder now, and voices, laughing, clinking glasses. You push the doors open, and you're back in the banquet hall. It's exactly as it was. The tables, the food, the smell of roasted dates and warm bread. But the people, they're still. Not dead, not asleep. Paused. Frozen mid-bite, mid-toast, mid-step. Even the emir, cup lifted, gaze fixed. Time, you realize, has no loyalty here. And then the doors slam shut behind you. You run. Back through the kitchen, which is now filled with sand, past the hall of mirrors, which now shows you in someone else's clothing, through the corridor with the endless paintings, each one depicting a different person, eating, working, running, begging. You stop in front of one. It's you. Same face, same clothes, different background. You're deeper inside. Nope, no thank you, you sprint. Eventually, you find another survivor, a carpenter this time. Wild-eyed and covered in scratches, he tells you he found a hatch beneath the floor in the west wing. It wasn't on the plans, he says. None of this was on the plans. I was so careful. Together, you head for the hatch. Now, remember how we said the castle was designed to trap its own builders? Well, here's the real sting. The traps work best on those who understand them. The carpenter knows what to avoid, which stones to press, which angles to duck at. And yet, when he reaches the hatch and opens it with shaking hands, you both see the same thing. A banquet, another one, but not the same one. This one is darker, more twisted. There's food on the table, but it's not food. Stone shapes mimicking meals, goblets filled with tar. Faces at the table are carved in wax, melting. He starts laughing. You pull him away. The hatch slams shut. This is how it goes, day after day. You explore a wing that appears only when the sun is at a specific angle. You find stairs that grow shorter as you climb them, a fountain that flows with ink. One corridor loops endlessly, forcing you to listen to the same argument. Two guards shouting about missing tools over and over, like a scratched record, except they're real. Somewhere in your search, you find a library. It shouldn't be surprising. Every good haunted castle has a library. But this one is all wrong. The books are blank, every single one, except when you're not looking at them. When you glance sideways or walk away and turn back, you see words, just for a second. Phrases like, "The feast ends when the walls forget your name," or, "To leave, leave nothing behind." Cryptic, unhelpful, rude. Still, it's your first real clue. That's when you start looking at the castle differently, not as a trap, but as a game. A cruel, shifting, centuries-old puzzle. Maybe there is a way out. Maybe the trick isn't to fight the structure, but to surrender to it. A fringe historian once wrote that ancient fortresses weren't just defensive strongholds, they were spiritual machines. Altars made of brick and time, designed to outlast the people who built them. Maybe this castle isn't haunted because it's cursed. Maybe it's haunted because it worked. The Omir knew that. You remember how he stood, so calmly, as the walls rearranged. He didn't flinch, didn't run, because he wanted this. A legacy you couldn't knock down. A kingdom that would never fall, not because of strength, but because it devoured anything that threatened to understand it, including you. You don't know how long you've been inside now. The sun never moves. The shadows don't shift. You stopped counting the days when you realized time bends here like the hallways do. But then, one day, when you're tracing your steps back to what should be the gate, you hear something that stops you cold. A hammer. Rhythmic, confident, familiar. You follow the sound, weaving through passageways, rooms that reshape around you, staircases that tremble under your feet. And finally, you reach the courtyard. There's a new crew. Builders, young, sweating, confused, hammering stone, carving designs, following plans they don't understand. You realize the castle isn't done building itself. It never was. You don't move. You just watch. The new builders go about their tasks like you once did, focused, annoyed, joking between themselves in the way people do when they think the worst that can happen is a bruised thumb or an overcooked dinner. You want to scream, shake them, tell them to run. But how do you warn someone about a trap that's smarter than they are? Besides, there's a terrible truth blooming in your gut. You're not outside the castle anymore. Not really. You're part of its systems now. A ghost on a different frequency. You remember every stone, every secret stair. You know how the light slants through the slitted tower at noon, how the whispering vents carry your voice through the walls like breath in a throat. You didn't escape. You merged. And now the castle is building again. New wings, new tricks, new victims. You spot strange additions you don't remember planning. A hallway paved in black glass. A dome that curves inward like a massive eye. You touch the wall beside you. It's warm. It pulses faintly. The castle is alive, and you're its memory. You wander for a long while. Sometimes you recognize a room, sometimes a sound. Once you pass a narrow hall where the echo of the banquet music still loops, slower now, more hollow. You could swear the torches flicker in sync with the beat. Other times, you stumble across parts of the castle you never built. A flooded courtyard filled with statues of people you think you recognize, but aged, twisted, exaggerated. A dining room where the chairs face away from the table. A room made entirely of mirrors, but the reflections don't match. You wave, they stare back. And then, something new. A door you've never seen before. It's narrow and plain. No decoration, no warning symbols. Just a handle worn smooth by use. Something tells you not to open it. You open it anyway. The air changes, it's cool, still, dustless. Inside is a room unlike any other in the castle. No tricks, no sounds, no warping walls. Just shelves, filled with objects, tokens, pieces. You recognize some, tools you used, a sandal you lost during the first week, a burnt scrap of a worker's drawing. This is the castle's vault, its collection. Every object holds a memory. You pick one up, a chisel. Immediately your mind flashes. A joke told under the scaffolding. The way the stone cracked when struck just wrong, is the calluses on your fingers that bled but kept going. You put it back. This room is where the castle stores you, not your body, your experience, your role, your usefulness. You realize, with a kind of quiet horror, that there might be hundreds of these rooms, maybe thousands. One for every builder it's ever consumed. And then, soft footsteps, behind you. You turn, and standing in the doorway is the emir. Or maybe it's not him. Maybe it's a projection, a construct. His eyes are hollow, like carved obsidian. But his face wears the same unreadable calm you saw at the feast. He says nothing. You say nothing. He turns and walks away. You follow. Not because you trust him, but because in this place, any action is better than standing still. You follow him through corridors that feel older than the rest of the fortress, smoother, deeper, quieter. Dust hangs suspended in the air, like the castle is holding its breath again. Eventually, he stops before a wall. He places his hand against it. A seam appears. The stone pulls back, revealing a narrow stair spiraling downward. You hesitate. He nods, and then descends. You go after him. The stairs stretch far longer than they should. You lose count. The air thins. Your breath grows shallow. Finally, the steps end in a chamber so dark it swallows the torchlight. And here's the final twist. The chamber is filled with voices. Not loud, not terrifying, just soft, familiar. Builders, all the builders. Their memories, maybe, their stories, whispering through the stone, carried by the mortar. The castle didn't kill them, it kept them, encased them in itself. You close your eyes and feel their presence like a tide, sad, patient, constant. The emir steps into the center of the room. He kneels. For the first time, he speaks to you. "This is what I built," he says. Not for power, not for fear, for permanence, for remembrance. You don't know whether to curse him or thank him. And then he's gone. No sound, no flash, just gone. You walk back through the castle. The new crew never sees you. You pass within arm's reach of a carpenter arguing with a stone cutter. You whisper. They don't hear. You're on a different layer now. And still, the castle builds. One day, far in the future, maybe it'll reach the edge of what it can contain. Or maybe it will keep going, drawing in new minds, folding them into its cold, patient body. You look up at a tower and wonder, was this ever about a fortress? Or was it about eternity? Now, let's step away. Leave the castle behind for a moment. You don't need to carry its whispers into your dreams tonight. Breathe. Feel the weight of stone slide from your shoulders. Let the twisting hallways soften into mist. Let the torches flicker out one by one, and let the walls remember themselves without you for a while. The footsteps, they're gone now. Just the hush of wind in trees, just the sound of your breath. The castle is far away, sealed behind stories, tucked inside the pages of old strange books no one reads anymore. Whatever it was, monument, prison, or living memory, it's sleeping again, waiting for the next dreamer, the next builder. But not you. Not tonight. Tonight, your job is simple. Close your eyes, let the shadows stretch out, and the light fall gentle on your skin like silk. Let the quiet return, not empty but full of the kind of peace that only comes after mystery. You've walked through forgotten stone, dined with ghosts, and outlived a fortress built to trap time itself. That's enough for one evening. Sleep now. The doors are locked, the halls are still, and somewhere deep inside, the castle forgets your name. End of script. Sweet dreams.